Last night, at a protest in Seattle, a car was seen driving towards an intersection where there was a protest, a large gathering of Black Lives Matter protesters. Somebody runs up to the car and punches the driver. The driver pulls out a gun and shoots the man in the arm before exiting the vehicle. Moving around the vehicle, medics run in, chaotic scene. The driver eventually moves through the crowd and then surrenders to the police. It's an unfortunate and dramatic escalation. And we're already seeing people trying to decide who was right and who was wrong. I think the fair assessment is, to be honest, it looks like both sides are going to claim justification. Now, whether or not I can say who is or isn't, I don't have the moral authority to do so. But in this video, we see a guy who's driving not particularly fast, but he is headed towards an intersection with a lot of protesters. Naturally, they're all on edge because of what's happened in the past, if you know what I mean. Some dude runs up and punches him. Now look at it from the driver's perspective. He might not even known where he was going or what was going on with people in the street. So he starts slowing down. Someone runs up to him, punches him in the face. Next thing he knows, people are storming his car. He pulls his weapon in self-defense. He turned himself into the police. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not going to pretend to be the arbiter of truth and moral authority. I'm going to read you the story, but I will tell you things are getting scary out there, man. And I'll tell you, I was thinking about what's been going on, and I got to be honest, I don't really think I don't think there are two factions. I mean, there are, but you have a revolutionary authoritarian faction, and then you have traditional American civil libertarian types. The people who are speaking out against the rioting and the revolution are just mostly reformer type Americans. They want to see things fixed. They don't want to see a dramatic revolution. That's probably most people. I mean, you look at all the calls to abolish police. Most people do not want to do that. Like, I'm talking it's like 90 something percent. So who are these people who are fanatically, jumping up and down in the streets, demanding defunding or abolishment of police? Radical extremists, I guess. Now, look, the whole conflict, I'm not going to pretend I don't know, it's tough, but I want to show you this. I want to read you the story, but I want to show you two quick things to make my point. This has been going around, submitted a day ago on Reddit, a Black Power take on the Gadsden flag, and it is the Revolution Fist strangling the snake. This flag is shocking because the Gadsden flag is a symbol of opposing tyranny. It's mostly about being left alone. The flag represented the rattlesnake, I believe, that was basically like, stay away from me, mind your own business, let me do my thing, otherwise I'm going to bite you, right? This is them crushing a snake seeking to mind its own business. In fact, in this Reddit thread, they said, quote, when you accidentally take the side of the boot. I don't believe it is an accident. Take a look at this story. 9-member majority of Minneapolis City Council announced support for dismantling Minneapolis Police Department. They say this is a veto-proof majority. So when it comes time to vote, it would seem they're going to vote to completely disband the police department. I wonder why they would want to do that. Before we get into this stuff, let's just read this story and see what's going on so you can get a understanding of the actual breaking news. The Washington Post reports, and admittedly, I did read through a ton of these stories, and I think the Washington Post does a better job than a lot of outlets, but we'll break this down. A chaotic scene unfolded Sunday night in Seattle when an armed driver barreled toward a crowd of protesters, shooting one person who apparently tried to stop him before ultimately surrendering to police, according to authorities and video footage of the incident. The violence interrupted a peaceful protest in the name of George Floyd near the Seattle Police Department's East Precinct just before 8:30 p.m. Sunday. Video shows protesters appearing to chase after a black Honda Civic as it sped down the street towards a larger crowd, slowing just as it crashed into a metal barrier near an intersection. Not really, that's a little exaggerated. One protester caught up to the vehicle. The man appeared to try and reach inside the driver's side window when a shot rang out. According to the New York Times, the man admitted to punching him in the face. In fact, there's video of him being interviewed where he straight up says, I punched him in the face. Now I'm seeing a lot of people say the driver was justified. He was driving down the street. You can't assume he knew what was going on. Somebody runs up and punches him in the face, so he draws his weapon and defends himself. Other people have noticed that it looks like he's got an extended mag and another clip taped to the clip. So I don't know enough about guns to comment, but people are saying it looked like he was prepared. It's still, you're drawing a lot of conclusions on intent. There's a lot of stupid and legitimate reasons someone might have something like that. I certainly think it's not a good thing, and I would lean towards something fishy about it, but let's read this. The protester jolted backward, falling onto the pavement. Bystanders and medics rushed to his aid. The suspect, who has not been identified by police, then exited the vehicle as the people who had just surrounded his car fled in all directions. He's got a gun, people screamed. Now, I'm going to tell you what. When the shot rang out, you had dozens of people surrounding his vehicle, and they all broke and backed off immediately. I'm sorry, man, but I mean, a jury might view that as justified. It's not just about him being punched in the face. It's about the fact that a swarm of protesters were rushing towards his car. He got attacked. They were going towards his car, and so he reacted. I think you could easily convince a jury that, he didn't kill the guy, he shot him in the arm. He was panicking. He didn't know what was going on. He didn't know where he was. I think he can easily get off on any kind of charges. Maybe get some kind of lighter charge pertaining to, negligence or something. But I don't know. I got to admit, you're going to see the lefty ideologues claim this guy was, gunning for a fight. It was premeditated. All of this crazy stuff. That's propaganda. We do not know anything. They say the man ran through the crowd towards the police line. Once he emerged from the crowd, he walked toward the police with his hands in the air. He walked nearly all the way up to the police line before officers took him away. And so I got a photo. I'm going to show you a photo. I got to be careful about showing the video because this is YouTube, unfortunately. Seattle police said the unidentified suspect is in custody and that a gun was recovered from the scene. The Seattle Fire Department, the SFD, said the 27-year-old victim was transported to the hospital and is in stable condition. Video footage showed the victim walking down the street with medics while raising his fist in the air. In one video by photojournalist Alex Garland, the victim, identified as Daniel, explained what had happened. I see a car run down the street. I catch him. I punch him in the face. I hear the gunshot go off in my arm, and I move right in time, he said. My whole thing was to protect those people. Protesters cheered for the man as he passed them in the street on his way to meet the paramedics. Sunday marked the 10th consecutive day of protests in Seattle over police brutality, and they've been continuing, and there has been still some lower level rioting. I'm sorry, man. Look, there's a big difference between someone running up to a building and smashing a window and jumping in and grabbing stuff and running out, just like randomly, and what's been going on with the protests where they overlap with throwing rocks and bottles at people and smashing windows. That's just rioting, and it's ideologically motivated. So we did see the tradition, your standard fare of far leftists wearing all black, performing, their live action role play game for the police, where there's no real outcome where they benefit. This is what I always try to tell these Antifa far leftists, or people who want to understand them. Watch any of these videos. You will see Antifa associated individuals wearing all black, throwing things at cops. Ask yourself, why are they doing it? Well, the only real thing I could consider if we were trying to determine whether or not they actually had a plan is that they're trying to help Donald Trump. Now, and I mean this seriously. Think about it. If their goal was to, defeat the police, well, they wouldn't do it that way. I mean, you've got to deal with reform. You've got to deal with voting. And certainly if you want to defeat them by force, you wouldn't do it by throwing up with some water bottles, throwing them. No, in the end, all that can really happen is, well, there is one potential, but I think for the most part, you will see videos of the protesters throwing rocks and fighting cops. And already a morning consult poll shows us that Americans, a plurality, 45%, believe the protesters are responsible for the violence. Only 35% blame the police. Now, those numbers are still awful. Nobody should be blaming the police. Nobody should be blaming protesters, but violence is happening, so someone's going to blame them. But more Americans believe that the protesters are at fault. So this is an ideological defeat for these protesters. Perhaps they know that maybe it's some kind of war of attrition. Maybe they know that one radical ideologue who gets activated is better than losing 10 liberals who won't do anything anyway. And so they're trying to draw radicals, I guess, or indoctrinate people. But in the end, ultimately, I think they're just helping Trump. And whether intentionally or not, throwing stuff at cops is going to get people to say, they want Trump. Which brings me to the photo I would like to show you. This is a photo from the scene. You can see the man here getting out of his car. I think in a close-up shot, he looks Latino. I'm not entirely sure, but he does look Latino. He's got the wrenches on his sweater. I don't think anyone's come up with what the symbols are, so maybe you guys know, but it looks like it might be a reference to Army mechanics or something like that. You can see he's holding a gun, and you can see it looks like he's got an extended clip with another clip taped to it. This guy putting his hands up. Clearly looks like an Antifa style, type guy. Here's the man on the ground being treated by medics. And looks like another protester coming around the car here. Here's what I tweeted with this photo. I think the media is running in its 2016 playbook again. I could be wrong, but I don't see how someone sees an image like this or the week-long riots and thinks Joe Biden will keep us safe. I don't think anyone would believe that. Some people have said, I don't care for my president to keep me safe. I vote, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, nah, dude, people vote because they want to feel safe. When Donald Trump came out and said that he wanted to use the military, 58% of registered voters agreed. This is what's really strange about what we've been seeing with the polls. Right now, you can actually see here, Trump 41%, Biden 55%. They're saying, wow, Biden's got a 14-point lead. And I'm like, that's 2016 playbook, baby. Accuse Trump of all the worst things in the book while keep inundating the press with claims that Trump is going to lose. It means nothing to me because of what happened in 2016. And I'll tell you this. When you look at Trump's overall approval rating, how it doesn't match, Trump's approval rating doesn't match with the national polls, something doesn't make sense. This has been explained by some people. I believe it was 538 that said, maybe it was, or Nate Silver specifically, that actually, no, I can't remember where this is from. They said this may show that Trump has silent voters who won't admit they will vote for him, but secretly will. That's the point of the secret ballot. So when asked, they all approve of the job he's doing. But when they say, would you vote for him? Oh, no. Oh, not me. I wouldn't do it. And that skews the polling. More importantly, I don't see how you can have people, registered voters, overwhelmingly agree with Trump on a ton of issues, yet all of a sudden national polling says they're not going to vote for him. It's beyond just whether or not you support the president. Now, when it comes to the economy, Trump wins hands down. And I think the economy is the most important factor. I mean, the economy took a major hit. People are still betting that Trump will fix the economy. That's according to Wall Street Journal NBC poll, which was favorable for Biden. But it showed that when it came to the economy, the American people said Trump will do a better job. What do you think people are going to vote for? Do you think they're going to stand up on a soapbox and yell some kind of protest slogan? Or do you think they're going to slink down and go, let me get some of that green, buddy? I think they're going to go for cash. Trump's the guy who's going to make your life better and get you the things you want. Why would they vote for something else? Take a look at this tweet. Eddie Zipper tweeted this clip from CNN. Camarota. What if in the middle of the night, my home is broken into? Who do I call? Bender. Yes, I hear that loud and clear from a lot of my neighbors, and I know, and myself too, and I know that comes from a place of privilege. Minneapolis City Council vows to dismantle the police department. You mean to tell me that the 70% or whatever of this country that is white is going to be like, that's a really good point about how we have the privilege to call the police. I'm going to give that up because other people are scared? Sorry, man. I think people are first and foremost selfish. And I'm not saying that to disrespect anybody or act like people are bad. I'll just put it this way. What is this saying on an airplane? You got to secure your own mask before securing the mask of those sitting next to you. That is the mentality of human beings because it has allowed us to survive this long. There are some people who would sacrifice themselves first and foremost to save others. Some people would be the first one out of the burning building. You don't know who you are, I guess, until you're in a burning building. Everyone likes to think they would be virtuous and noble. I'd be willing to bet 99% of people just run to the exit. And then what happens in a lot of buildings as they all run to the exit is they get jammed in this actually happens. Because people don't check for their exits in buildings, when a fire breaks out, they all cram into one door and they get stuck, smashed, unable to move. So side advice, if you're ever in a building, make sure you know where your exits are. But anyway, the point is, this woman is saying she wants to dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department. They're calling for disbanding it outright. The protesters want it to be abolished. Abolished. Gone. No more police department. Who do you call in the middle of the night? Well, instead of addressing it, let me just say that's privilege. And she goes on to say there are some people who can't do that now. My response is, sounds like we need reforms. Think about it. If you have this really great thing where like you can call them and they show up to help you, and there are other people who can't, why would the reaction be, let's take away the good thing from everybody instead of give the good thing to everybody? This seems to be the mentality of the far left. Cut off the tall grass. It's not, whereas we want a rising tide to raise all ships. They want all ships scuttled and sunk and disheveled on the shoreline, unable to move. That's what they're proposing. The police are not all good. They can't be. It would be impossible because we're humans. But when I had someone try to break into my house, I called the cops and they showed up within minutes and they kept us safe. In fact, one of the cops was like, if it had me, I'd have my shotgun. And I'm like, I hear you loud and clear, buddy. I get it. The cops know what's up. They had to come back, actually. And they did. And they took a report and they took care of things. Nobody died. Nobody got arrested. They shooed the guy off. I don't care because I thought I defer to their expertise. They were quick. They were reasonable. Good thing. I've had good experiences and I've had a ton of bad experiences. There was a video that was going viral the other day where it shows a woman flag down a cop car. She comes out of her car. Her baby is unresponsive. An officer jumps out and tries performing some life-saving techniques. I don't know exactly what I'm assuming, maybe like CPR or something on the baby. Nothing's working. So this cop, a white man, takes the baby, who is a black woman's baby, a black baby, and he rushes it to the hospital to save its life. It's an amazing story. It has nothing to do with race. But it's going viral because it's showing a cop saving someone's life, and I think because they want people to show the racial issues. And the argument is this is why you don't defund the police, because they will help you. There are bad things that happen with cops, a lot of bad things. They're mostly in cities like New York. New York's got serious problems. So let me tell you something. Even in New York. Actually, you know what? In New York, you might find a bunch of crazy people. But here's what I see happening. These protesters represent a fringe, absolute fringe. It's something like 16% according to a Cato Institute's poll. So not necessarily, I don't want to go off one poll, but hey, it's what the best we have. 16% want defunding of the police. And that doesn't mean abolishment. It could literally mean demilitarization. It could mean a reduction in staff, but it doesn't mean you get rid of the department. The amount of people who want to just completely remove the department, I think, is slim to none. Microscopic percentages. 90% want the departments to be kept where they are, but most people, around 79%, according to the same survey, want reform. I totally want reform, 100%. I think we can reassess everything we've been seeing, find a way to build trust in our police departments, help keep our police safer with better guidelines. And I mean safer in many ways, not just, in terms of physical safety, but, community trust, cancel culture type stuff. And body cameras, I think, will be important as well. There was an NYPD officer who was an advocate for a body cam saying they keep the good cops safe and the bad cops don't like them. Now, I've heard arguments against body cameras. Don't care. Wear a body camera, dude. Seriously, it'll save your life. I put a camera in my car when I drive. You know why? Because it's not about other people. It's about you. You do the right thing. You try your best. And other people, they don't. I'm not a big fan of a surveillance state panopticon kind of thing, but you know what, man? In certain circumstances, you can keep yourself safe by wearing your cameras. And I think it would be a good idea. But let me just break this down. How many white people do you think are going to stand up and yell, yes, the police are bad, and then go to the ballot secretly and just be like, oh, dear Lord, help me keep the police? This woman, Allison Cameron, says, who am I going to call in the middle of the night? A lot of people call the police in the middle of the night. I did. Do I want to give that up simply because other people can't? No. I want to make sure other people can. And that's called reform of the department. It's called police accountability. One proposed solution was dismantling the police unions, which is hilarious coming from the left, mind you. And then other people are posting things about teachers' unions. Oh, yeah. I am a big fan of collective bargaining. I am no fan of union cronyism. If a bad cop takes bad action, get him out. And the other problem here is because of the way the unions work, a lot of cops feel pressured to shut up and not speak out against the bad cops because of the bad things that'll happen to you if you go against them. Nah. Let's generate this sense of community with our police. Let's build trust. Let's institute some reforms. Let's figure out safer ways to do policing, to protect the police and the people. And just, man, we got to solve a problem. You don't just blow the whole thing up because you've got problems in certain areas. Man, these people are going to regret it. I really think so. In Minneapolis, we're already seeing armed patrols go around because they've lost confidence in police. Many people in the black community already say not to call the police. That's unfortunate, but it's a real thing. Trust me, man, it is. I grew up on the south side of Chicago, and we were told in some circumstances, do not call the cops, call the fire department. For real. The idea was that at least in the south side, it doesn't matter what your race was. And that's another thing that bothers me about all this stuff. Growing up on the south side, like 2 blocks from housing projects, man, we had cops mess with us too. We had people get arrested. I've been falsely arrested twice Twice. I'm being straight up. Two bunk arrests. Okay, one was only half bunk. They overcharged me because I was skateboarding in Chicago, but one was a legit false arrest. I've dealt with it. And I still don't think even after that we want to get rid of the cops. But let me just tell you something, man. On the south side of Chicago, people would say, if you have a problem with a mental health issue, if somebody you know is, sick or hurt, obviously if it's like a gang shootout, you call the cops, man. But for most of the things you usually call them for, like emergencies, like someone might be trying to break in your house, you call and report a fire. Because then a fire truck pulls up and it scares people off. Firefighters aren't equipped to this. And I'm not saying you should do this. Absolutely not. I'm saying this is what people were saying to do because they didn't trust the police. That's got to stop. 100%. A friend of mine said in response to that poll, about 45% blaming the protesters and 35% blaming the cops. She said, well, shouldn't it be 1% blaming the cops? Like, if there is violence, people should be blaming the protesters. And this is someone who supports the protesters. And I'm like, it's actually a good point. It's kind of a weird point for someone to say because, like, why should we blame the protesters? But we shouldn't blame either, to be honest. But it really should be no one blaming the cops. The cops shouldn't be doing anything where anyone blames them for it. I think it's fair to say in a lot of circumstances, the cops get blamed no matter what. But maybe there's a perception and a policing issue that can reduce that number. And people would then turn to the protesters and blame the protesters, like, stop throwing stuff at cops. In London, I can certainly see where this goes with the cops running away. I kid you not, man. It's kind of sad. In PA, I think it was Webster, you had a cop lay down on his belly and put his hands behind his back in front of the crowd, and they all started like cheering. And then one guy said it wasn't enough. That to me is a bit too far. I mean, there are things you can do. I don't know what the answers are, though. I'll tell you that. But watching London, where the cops just run away frantically, was horrifying, man. These are fringe, zealous, fringe politics, whatever you want to call it. Having our police stand down is not what needs to be happening. What people don't understand in these protests is that the reason why the cops are out there in riot gear is not because they hate you and because they're trying to protect the rich. It's because we live in a democratic, constitutional republic with democratic institutions. This means people are equal under the law. It's less to do with how the government is formed. What this means is if 100 people come outside and say, whose side are you on? And 1,000 people are in their homes saying, protect us. You are not in the majority and the cops will protect those 1,000 people. Right now, the assumption is most people are not protesting, and that's a fact. So the cops are going to come out and say, you are not the majority. This is not a democratic process. Now, there are problems with police brutality. Totally think so. That's why I'm in favor of reform. Not this, though. How does it, whatever this says about that, the initial story with the shooting, man, I don't know. I just view that as an escalation, and it's going to keep escalating, especially as we get towards the election. So I guess we'll see how things play out. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel, and I will see you all then.